Hey, hello there. In this tutorial I want to show you how to use the new set mesh normal and use it procedurally on all your mesh islands. So in the previous tutorial I showed you how to make this nice blend between objects with instances. So here you have your base object, which is the ball, and on top are all these cylinders and spheres and toruses, and they are nicely blended together. They are not using any geometry for this, they are only using the normal shading. So if I go into mesh view, you see that there's a hard edge here, but the normals are blended together. So you need quite some geometry, but it's way better than remeshing it and then smoothing these edges. So in the previous tutorial I showed you how this worked, and now I'm going to show you how to do it with a lot of separate objects. So you can have a lot of instances or just separate objects that are intersecting, and then you can give this blended normal edge to all of them. So what I'm doing here is I'm using an icosphere. If we go into viewer node, here this is the sphere, then I'm projecting all these points onto them. There's just a few. And then I'm using the object here, which is a rounded cylinder like this, and then I'm using that to project onto the points. And there's also a random scale here so that there is some variation, that you get some nice intersecting edges. There's also a lot of geometry here to calculate all the normals for every face. If there's not enough faces here, then you get a little bit of jaggy result, and I gave it a lot of faces so you can get a nice normal blend. So what I'm doing here, I rotate, or I am able to rotate them, as you see here. Then you get different edges. I realize the instances, and then you have the procedure that I'm going to show you. And then if you go and see the whole result, you see here that no matter how I rotate them, they still blend together. You see that in some parts I might need more geometry, but if you put a nice material over this, it's probably fine. So here I'm rotating them again. You see that it's fully procedural. And if you would do this with a remesh modifier or make a volume from this mesh and then back into a mesh and blur the position, that's also a method to do it. This would become really heavy, but doing it this way with just the normals, you get a fine result for most renders. So if we go into the node group that I made, here you can see that I'm using a repeat zone. So what I'm actually doing, I am taking every mesh island, so every cylinder here is a separate mesh island, and then repeat this procedure on every mesh. So here at the start, I'm capturing every mesh index or island index. So this cylinder is 0, this one is 1, this one is 2, this one is 3. So it knows that every island has one index. And then I'm going to capture the island count. So I think this is about 9 instances, as you can see here. So it will do 9 iterations. So that is not to do like over compute this set of procedures. It just takes the 9 that needs to be done. I'm plugging in this one into iterations, and like the island index, going into the not equal and delete nodes here. So here I'm flipping not equal, and here I'm using a not node to flip the selection. And here the geometry comes in. Then I am deleting all the cylinders but one. So I'm keeping this one. And then for this iteration, I'm doing the opposite. So I'm keeping all the other ones and I'm deleting this one. And what I can then do is calculate the normals between these two objects. So this object is 1 and all the other objects are object 2. and then it blends the normals. Then what happens is it takes the index and adds 1 and then feeds it back into index. So first it starts at 0, then it does the procedure, then it goes to 1, then it does the procedure for the next cylinder, then it adds 1, so you are at index 2, then it does the procedure again for the next cylinder, so you're calculating all the blended normals for every cylinder in this case. And then I'm setting the mesh normal and using this node, the normal, I'm calling this normal transfer node, and here the meshes come in and I'm using the sample nearest surface and taking the normal, and here I'm using the proximity, so it calculates the proximity between all the cylinders and then this single cylinder, and it uses the map range with a from max and minus to be able to set also the fillet distance or the width of this fillet. And then I'm mixing them together, so the result goes into the vector. I'm using A as the regular normal and B as the nearest normal. So then it can calculate the blend of the normals. Then it goes out, also taking the distance that you can use in a material, for example. As I'm doing here, I say distance and I'm using that in a material. You don't need the material to make this effect, so you just need this setup. So here I'm setting or calculating the blend of the normals, then setting them, and then also storing the distance if I want to do anything with a material. Then I'm making this into an instance again, so it's not going to use the cylinder that has been done for the next iteration. So it does a cylinder, calculate the normals, then makes an instance, then makes the next an instance, then makes the next an instance, and adding them all up every time the procedure is done. And then the result is that you see that they all have this nice blended normal. If I go in here, and I'm going to show you how that looks like if I set the position, set position like this, and then I am using the island, mesh island, and then I'm using a math node and I'm setting that to multiply, and I want to move them in the, if I say combine XYZ, I want to move them in the Z. So I'm taking every index, then I multiply that by a value, a small value, and then offsetting it. And then you should see it's now not happening. I'm not sure why, but if I go here, instances, I think it's not doing it because I have to make them into instances again, or realize the instances. Yeah, there we go. So if I take this down 0.2, now I'm offsetting all these cylinders so you can see which normals are calculated. So here you can see that all the normals of the intersections are calculated, and now it looks a little bit weird. But if they are all set in the right position, you can see that it's correct. You get this very nice smooth effect without blending all these normals of the real faces. So offsetting the faces, but just doing it by the smoothing. So if I take this out, here is what the result is. Here you can also see that I have a material that takes the distance data and makes it shiny. I also have I think a reverse of that with a roughness. Now you see that the cylinders are very shiny and here they are very rough. You get a roughness where this could be used to create some kind of weld lines which are very quick to calculate, and maybe you can do some roughness where there is edgeware or something, so you can use the distance value as an attribute in your material. So that is how you can set up your automatic smooth blend normals, and you can get this also in Blender Market. It's added to the other ones that I created, like this one that I just showed you. This is for the 4.5 version also, and there's another method to do in 4.4. So you have these 3 files that you can use to blend your objects, and now also do an automatic procedure for all your intersecting objects. So I hope this is very useful for you, and you find some nice ways to create blended objects, and I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye!